Hello, everybody. I'm Paul Liu, the Executive Secretary of the 4 per Mille initiative, and I'm very sorry not to be with you today due to difference of time between France and the US, but I propose that I recorded my presentation and then you will be able to benefit of it while I will sleep. So, allow me to switch my screen in order to present to you what I would like to share. So I would like to explain to you what is the objective of the 4 per Mille initiative and why is it so important for us to develop this initiative worldwide. So if we look at the data provided by the scientists, we can see that the agriculture today is already represented, and all related activity is already represented 25% of the global greenhouse gas emission. Not only, of course, direct agriculture, but also all what's happened before the agriculture took place and also what's happened after. This is what we call the contribution of the AFOLU sector, agriculture, forestry, and land use sector. So the agricultural sector would be the first contributor in greenhouse gas emission in 2050. And from 25% today, it will go up to 50% in 2050. That is why we have to work on it through agriculture mainly. So it was just a small introduction. And we can also consider some other factors. The world population is growing, and unfortunately, the rate of the decreasing number of undernourished is not so high that the population is increasing. So it means that we have more and more population on Earth, and the number of people that are suffering from undernutrition is decreasing also, but not at a comparable rate to disappear. The second point is that the agriculture is also criticized due to the fact that, as I previously said, all the other economic sector commit to reduce their GHG emission, while the agriculture has not yet really commit to decrease the emission. So it means that we will have to work on that very, very soon, and even now. Third point, we all notice that the climate change is really already ongoing, and that we need to adapt the agriculture and forestry to this ongoing climate change. If not, we will be in trouble for food security in a short while. To summarize what I just said, we have to act on GHG emission at all levels and in all sectors, including agriculture and forestry. We have to adapt agriculture and forestry to climate change, because this one is already ongoing. And we have to ensure food security that will be otherwise strongly impacted by climate change. Fortunately, we can do that through one thing, namely soils. And we also can do that through one action, carbon sequestration or carbon storage. Why is it so important to store carbon in soil? Then if you remove carbon from the atmosphere, you will attenuate or mitigate the climate change, so you will attenuate GHG emission, and you can do that for decades, even to millennia, if you are doing the proper practices. So the also very important thing is that you are doing that through the photosynthesis, which is the most efficient, low-cost, negative emission technology to capture CO2 in the atmosphere. It's also important to store carbon in soil because it helps agriculture to adapt to climate change. When you increase the soil organic matter, you will increase also the capacity of the soils to have a water retention, and you also decrease the sensitivity of soils to erosion. So those two factors are very important to help the agriculture adapt to climate change, drought, or even flood. It's also important to contribute to food security and restore degraded soils through the carbon storage. Why? Because we all know that when you increase the soil organic matter content in a soil, you increase also the soil fertility. But this will also increase soil yield, stability. And of course, finally, when you store organic matter in soil, then you will also help restoring the degraded soils. So just come back on a short sequestration mechanism in soil, just a small sketch. This is very important to understand that because it helps also understand how we can sequester carbon in soil and how also you can release the carbon in the atmosphere. So the plants are capturing the CO2 with the photosynthesis process, with the energy of the sun. And this, when the plant and the animal with the plant just die, come back to the soil. This is what we call the fresh organic matter. So the first thing that happened, it's a primary mineralization. It means that the organic matter will decompose and will give birth to a lot of gas that will be emitted in the atmosphere. But fortunately, a big part of this organic matter will also contribute to the humification and the transformation in the soil in humus. This humus is a more stable way to hold organic matter in soils. While this is not also perfect because part of this humus will also have a mineralization, the secondary mineralization, that will release also some gas in the atmosphere. But fortunately, some of those gas with the plant, with the fungus, with the life in the soil will be reorganized and come back to the humus. So you can see that this is a kind of balance where you have a process capturing CO2 in the atmosphere with the plants, and also all the process in the soil that are also releasing CO2, CH4, and O2 in the atmosphere that are contributing also as greenhouse gas and also changing the climate change. So the difficulty is that we are working on the balance and the biologic phenomena. On this sketch, I tried to explain, it's not my one, of course I borrow it to Ratan Lal. In fact, when we are in the system that are naturally balanced, we could consider that we are at the level of the 100 on the left part of the sketch. And when we start making agriculture, we start decreasing the relative soil carbon pool, and we are going down along to the red, towards the red part of this sketch. So fortunately, sometimes agriculture is maintaining a kind of new equilibrium, but this is not very satisfactory because we are low behind the naturally balanced level. What we can do when you are starting storage and sequestration through the proper practices, you are going to the pink area. That means that the rate of carbon is starting to increase again. And if the proper practices are developed, then you can even go to the green area where the objective could be to come back to the 100 line situation where it was the natural balance level. Well, we can always imagine that in the future, using specific technology or specific practices, we will be able to go further and maybe go over that soil saturation. But this is just a dream at the moment. At the moment, if we can go to the pink area, that will be very good. And if we go to the green area, that will be even a very, very important step. So the goal of the 4 per mil initiative in all this context is, as you can understand, increase carbon sequestration in soil as organic matter for a triple objective: increasing food security, adapting agriculture to climate change, mitigate climate change, and also, of course, all of those pursuing the objective of sustainable development adopted by the United Nations. But just stop 2 minutes on the name of the 4 per mil initiative, where this name, this funny name is coming from. Well, it's just a very basic calculation, what we could call a back of the envelope calculation made by some scientist, crazy one maybe, most probably. But anyway, it was very interesting. Because those scientists consider all the emission, the global emission due to the human activity, that could be transportation, energy, industry, agriculture, deforestation, and every year this conducts to a release in the atmosphere of roughly 10 gigatons of carbon per year. Fortunately, the natural vegetation and the ocean are able to recapture part of this gas, a little bit more than half, which is not too bad, but not enough. And every year, I would say at the end of the day, but not only at the end of the year also, the net fluxes of GHG emission, I mean the carbon equivalent emission in the atmosphere, is plus 4.3 gigatons that are going to increase the quantity of carbon in the atmosphere. But most of the people ignore that soils are richer in carbon than the atmosphere, 2 to 3 times, and that we can maybe do something on those, on this carbon. And if you compare the quantity of carbon in the topsoil, the 30 to 40 centimeter, that means roughly 900 gigatons of carbon. If you compare that figure to the plus 4.3 gigaton of carbon, then you can make a simple calculation that at an annual increase of 0.4% of the world soil surface carbon stock, then we could compensate the annual CO2 increase in the atmosphere due to the human activity. And 0.4% is equivalent, is what in French we call 4 per mil, and so that is why we use this name for the initiative. The 4 per mil initiative today is quite a large group of all stakeholders. We have almost 450 signatories to become a partner of the initiative, and you can see that we have almost 50 countries and provinces, 13 international organizations and so on, farmers organization, enterprise, NGOs, research education body, and so on. Some of those partners, almost half, signed the second declaration of intention that in order to become a member and to be part of the decision of the initiative. It has to be noted that the enterprise are not allowed to become a member because we don't want to have an influence from the private business in the decision that will be taken within the initiative. The chairman of this initiative is Dr. Ibrahim Mayaki from Niger, and the vice chair is Stéphane Le Foll from France. Well, all what we propose in the initiative, in fact, is to push all the stakeholders, and mainly, of course, the farmers, to go towards agroecology and to use agroecology. So just to give you an idea of what we would like to promote, I just draw that sketch and I will explain to you while I will build it, why is it so important. Our society today wanted us to use less and less mineral fertilizer and phytosanitary products. And they also wanted to have an increased biodiversity, or at least maintain the biodiversity, but if we can increase. And of course, the carbon sequestration in soil, also because it's important to fight climate change, as I said before. Today, with the conventional agriculture, we are here. We are in a place where we are using a lot of fertilizer and also phytosanitary products, and we are a low soil organic carbon. We are decreasing soil organic carbon because soil are eroding, and we are also a low biodiversity. So what we want to do is try to mimic the nature. That's why it's so important to also follow the natural move today of natural-based solution. We want to get an inspiration through the natural forestry ecosystem and using the agroecology to have an evolution from the conventional agriculture to a more ideal system. On the way, we can find the conservation agriculture, we can find organic agriculture, but maybe even better, some regenerative agriculture, holistic grazing system, and for some system, we can reach the agroforestry system with a lot of trees in those cropping systems that could really mimic the natural forestry ecosystem. So that's what we promote through the 4per initiative, how we can go from the conventional agriculture to a more adequate system to help us developing agroecology. What we also want to promote is the fact that the one who are doing the job at the end of the day are the farmers and the forester. I should say forester as well. Those people need to be placed in the center of the game. And they are not the only one to act. Of course, we are in a society. You have the civil society with the consumer, with the NGOs. We have also the policymaker. We have the international organization, the scientists, the agro-food business. And all those people have some influence on the farmers. And also the farmers can have some influence on the civil society that delivering some food and some other services, natural environment services. So that I try to figure out, simplify in this yellow arrow. But the farmers would like also to get access to some information. They said that they need to have more and more information. And in order to help them, we need to build a database on good practices according to agro-pedoclimatic area and production system. Practices that could be compatible, of course, with the agroecology and the movement, the trend that we want to promote. Then, to finish that sketch, you need also to have all the wish, all the interaction that the farmers or the other have in between each other. And you can see that each stakeholder tried to influence other one in a way to have a better positioning, I would say, of the producer and also of the whole society. Attention, if you want to get more information, so do not hesitate to go on our website. We have already opened a collaborative platform, shifting to a new collaborative platform that is really made for a true collaboration. So be patient, and we need to have more and more people joining the initiative. This is free of charge, so do not hesitate in your structure organization to join us. Thank you again for your attention.